You know, for long-standing practitioners, Dhamma teachers, so on and so forth, this particular concept has always been seen as a little tricky, a little complex. Many people will have some reservations about teaching it. I think partly because of that expression. When you see Paṭiccasamuppāda, you see the Dhamma. That expression, right? Almost seeming to imply that if you can't understand the 12 dependent on origination, that relationship, you haven't seen Dhamma. Alternatively, it's the other way around. If you can explain it brilliantly, you must have seen Dhamma. Because of that expression, there seems to be all this heavy expectations of what it means when someone understands or not Paṭiccasamuppāda. So that's an opening remark. I thought I should lay this on the table. I'm going to offer a perspective. I'm going to offer a perspective, my understanding of what it means. It's not a conventionally held viewpoint, may not be a conventionally held, I shall rephrase it, it may not be a conventionally held viewpoint. But I'm just sharing my perspective of what I think a way of understanding this Paṭiccasamuppāda in a way, understanding it in a way which is not too daunting for people. Not too daunting for people to understand, okay? First and foremost, I think it's good to start with this perspective. In the same way that you see Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path, in the same way that you understand Tilakkhana, the three characteristics, you understand it at your level. As you start to go deeper and deeper into Dhamma, your understanding of the concepts will become clearer, hopefully, clearer and clearer, sharper and sharper, more intuitive, and increasingly, you know you're probably on the right track in terms of understanding. In the same way, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Tilakkhana, in the same way that your understanding deepens, I think you should take this approach with Paṭiccasamuppāda, dependent origination. It is not something you understand just like this, but it is okay to first have an understanding of the concepts, and then over time you will develop an understanding of what it truly means at your level of appreciation. Okay, it's a gradual dawning of appreciation. It doesn't come suddenly. It's not one day you wake up, hop out of bed, and I know what it means. It doesn't work like that. It takes a long time. As you try to see the mind, it becomes obvious. Another point I want to make, these are all preamble statements. Another point I want to make is this. Paṭiccasamuppāda explains what goes on in your mind. It is not a thought process per se. It merely explains what is going on when you are relating to the world. How your mind processes information, how your mind thinks about them, and then how you then react to the world. It explains that. Okay? It doesn't mean, and I need to point out, it doesn't mean it is a thought process per se. In the same way that you understand what Abhidhamma, you have the thought process, and I can't remember how many parts there were. 16 parts, something like that. None of you done Abhidhamma before?
191 factors.
No lah. No, the thought process, I think it's 16 or 17 parts. I can't remember. It doesn't work like that, okay? The other point I want to point out is this. Actually, if you look at different suttas, you might actually notice that the start point of Paṭiccasamuppāda, right? That start point is not always the same start point. The one that we commonly know, the one that is often used, the start point that's often used is avidya, ignorance, right? Avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnana, vijnana paccaya nama rupa. That's the usual flow. So how does it go? The usual recitation start at the start point is ignorance, yes? And then it goes in this general order, okay? You will find that there are actually other suttas where the start point is not ignorance. And I've sent a couple of suttas to you guys to give you a sense of other suttas having a different start point. For instance, in a slightly different one, it starts from here, birth. Birth as condition, aging and death comes to be. And aging and death as condition. So you have bhava as condition, jati. So bhava is existence as condition, you have birth. Clinging as conditions, you have existence. So the start point is here, but it goes on, it will go back to explain a similar precondition. You understand that? Then you have a third one in Mahanidana Sutta, where the start point is death. Aging and death as condition. Condition for aging and death, birth. Condition for birth, becoming. Condition for becoming, clinging. Condition for clinging, craving. The flow is similar, but that start point is different. Then the question is, why? If Paṭiccasamuppāda is supposed to be just one way of understanding, there can only be one start point. It will be avidya, and nothing else matters. But no, Buddha, depending on when he talks, he will use a different start point. Yes, the flow is similar, the conditions are similar. Of course it's similar because it's supposed to be like that. Because you have some things, the next thing must arise. So the idea here is to try and explain, the underlying principle of the mind, conditionality. It is condition that drives your mental state and behavior. It's because of something that exists, something else arises. Because something else doesn't exist, that other thing will fade away, will not exist. This is the idea you first got to see. Don't worry about the flow. The principle of conditionality is the first thing you need to bear in mind. It is therefore a way of explaining anicca. It is a way of explaining anatta. You see what I'm saying? The point here is the Buddha used this to explain anicca, to explain anatta, and to show dukkha, how it all happens. So if you get fixated with the individual components, you're going to tie yourself up in knots. Don't get tied up in knots. First, understand the principle of conditionality. That's my point. Okay? Once you have understood the principle of conditionality, it's far easier to then get the idea how it works. Okay? And this is how it goes. Let's not do ignorance first, because this is the hardest. And I will explain to you at the end what that is. But in the meantime, let's take it the easier way first. And the easier way is actually here. This is the easier way. What is the condition for death? Aging and death must be birth. No birth, where got death?
Process.
Huh?
Process.
No. The point is the condition. In order that there is death, you must first have birth. That one, it's easy to understand. You see what I'm saying? The moment you take one chunk that is easy to understand, you can then understand the precondition for it. Because of birth, because there is the condition of birth, there will be death. What is the condition for birth? How did birth come about? There has to be wanting. There is a becoming. There is energy to become. Then you can arise, ma. If there isn't a becoming, you see, you notice, craving, clinging, becoming, or existence. The word is bawa. Bawa actually has two meanings. Bawa has the meaning of existence. Bawa has the meaning of becoming. Okay? Two meanings. Can you see this connection first? And it's pretty obvious. Craving. When you want something, you will cling. So, craving as a condition, with craving as a condition, you will cling. You can even imagine it. Don't have to think very hard, right? When you want something, the one thing will make you cling onto the next, that thing. When you cling and you cling and you cling, the next part is you will come again and again and again. You can even imagine it. Whether you talk about the rebirth or you're talking about just in this life, just in daily existence, it's the same. When you crave for something, you will cling. When you cling, you want to experience it again and again. You experience it again and again, you go and do it, lor. You go and get it, lor. There will be birth, lor. You see what I'm saying? So, up to this point, Paṭiccasamuppāda is obvious. I don't even have to work very hard to persuade you that it is like that. It is obvious. Okay? Now we push it further down. How did the craving come about? It's because you have feeling. Pleasant and unpleasant, which is why I kept saying, pleasant feeling make you want craving. Unpleasant feeling make you want not to have it. It's also craving. Feeling positive or negative, you will still got this thing come out. Okay? How did feelings come about? The condition for it is because you came into contact with things. If you didn't think about it, if you didn't see it, if you didn't hear it, no contact, no feeling, no craving, no clinging, no wanting it again and again, experiencing it again and again, none of the above. So again, very obvious. Let's go further back. How is contact even possible? Puzzle is possible only because you have 6 sense bases. Without any, if one of the 6 sense bases is missing, where you are concerned, there will be no contact pertaining to that organ. Therefore, Buddha explained, the 6 sense bases must be the condition for contact. Again, very obvious. How did 6 sense bases, how does it come about? Why is there hearing? Why is it possible to hear? Why is it possible to see and taste and all? It's because you have a functioning mind. Your brain works. There is a brain, there's an organ that works, or if you are not, you happen to be Dewa, like energy or what, there is still mentality. I like Bhante Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Mentality and materiality. He doesn't say body. It's actually nama rupa. But a mind a mind that sits on material form, and because of this combination arises the possibility of all your organs working. And therefore, there is an experience of an external world as well as an internal world. Because six sense basis, there's a thought part. You take this further back, and this is the interesting one. This is the one that people get a bit caught up. No, the eye, but because this seems to be consciousness, is there, ma? Then how come there is one more here that talks about consciousness? This one you need to refer to Mahanidana Sutta. And in the Mahanidana Sutta, there is an interesting explanation that this consciousness is the result of something taking birth. A consciousness preempting birth, then taking on birth. From that consciousness arises formation of the being within a womb or within whatever system, okay? This is in the Mahanidana Sutta.
So it's a special kind of consciousness.
Yes, according to the Mahanidana Sutta, okay? Now let's understand it. Let's take that aside, okay? That's important to understand, and it's important to bear in mind. This is in the sutta. We take it aside and we reflect about our own life, okay? And what, again, application, Dhamma concepts in application within the mind as you experience life. And you ask yourself this, when you perceive things, when you have sensations, somehow that underpinning it is like a platform of consciousness, underpinning its consciousness. So what we are saying is, Vedana, perception, even your experience of the form, the body, there is a consciousness experiencing all these things, a functioning mind that experiences these things and register the experience. That's all. That's all we are saying. And this is how you experience your mind and life. Understand? Up to this point, you're completely blur. Never mind. Just reflect. As I said, Paṭiccasamuppāda is not to be thought of conceptually. It is to be seen in the mind as you experience life. And whatever part that you can see, take those first. Actually, if you look at your own mind, that's why I kept saying, go back to your mind, right? In order to have perception, there has to be consciousness. If you don't have, if your consciousness is experienced through perception. You hear what I'm saying? In order to have perception, there must be consciousness. But your perception is possible because of consciousness, and your consciousness at any one point when you are experiencing perception, that's your consciousness. So the Buddha is correct. If you apply it to your mind and you stare at it, right? That's how it works. You get it, right? Mentality, materiality is actually your five aggregates. Nama Rupa. Okay? I mean, it's essentially Nama Rupa. Okay? Feelings. In order to have feelings, the feelings also here, but it's also there. That's why I say it's not about how the mind. It's not a linear thought process. It's a whole mess. How do you think? You don't think in a linear way. It keeps going in loops within the mind. It keeps going in loops. Underpinning feeling is consciousness. You got no consciousness, your feeling doesn't work. In order that you can experience feeling, there must be consciousness. Therefore, in the experience of consciousness at that point, that the content of consciousness is feeling. You understand what I'm saying? It's that loop here. The loop is here. Okay? This part is the tricky one, this portion. And I love this portion because this one is, as you start to deepen your appreciation of the Dhamma, this is the one which will become most obvious. It will become the most obvious. Let me explain. What is this ignorance? It's always said, ignorance is ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, right? A lot of people who are Buddhists will know very well the Four Noble Truths. So they will say, I don't have ignorance, but I still have dukkha. Or I do have a lot of understanding already, but there's still the dukkha. And the reason is because this ignorance operates at two levels. At one level is constantly underpinning your perspective and instincts and your in the way that you see the world. Constantly you are aware of craving, the interaction between craving and dukkha. You know when you want something, the sensation of dukkha will come up. You know that if you can let go, the sensation of dukkha will diminish. This idea, this association is not just a concept, it becomes a viewpoint, a lens through which you see the world. It is your way of life. You feel it. It becomes the way you will relate to the world. You feel it. It is your value system. It has become embedded into your value system. Because you not just know it, you build it into an instinct. This is how you see the world, okay? That's at one level. It changes your worldview. Secondly, when you are of that mind, the odds are your meditation and mindfulness practice is fantastic. So what will happen to someone with this kind of mindset is he is extremely mindful, he's very sharp, he's very aware, he lives moment to moment. The avidya pertains to ignorance of the mind at any one time, as well as ignorance of the value system as necessary in order that there won't be this sensation of dukkha. Let me explain. Suppose, let's say, you have gone for retreats, right? You're all gone for retreats, right? And then during retreat, you're particularly mindful. During retreat, you're particularly mindful, right? When you're particularly mindful, you're very mindful of Dhamma. You're mindful of your cat doesn't count. You must be mindful of Dhamma. Yes? And when you're very mindful of Dhamma, at the retreat, your sense of dukkha is not the same as the way you sense dukkha in daily life. You will see it at the distance, you'll see it come, you'll see it go, you'll let it be. At that point, your ignorance is minimal. You don't realize it. Your ignorance of the moment, your ignorance of Dhamma is minimal. So in a retreat, if you're doing it correctly, your sense of dukkha should be minimal. In fact, you will see and understand dukkha is like that. When you are mindful and you're not holding on to anything, you're okay. Dukkha doesn't arise. And you're experiencing the sense of peace. You understand that? So at a retreat, you still have avidya in daily life. You don't even realize that for you at the retreat, your avidya has reduced. You don't even realize it. But all you know is that the dukkha is reduced. You may see it more, but you will feel it less. You see it more. You see dukkha, you understand dukkha, but you don't feel the discomfort as much. What has happened? What happened is this. This has diminished. When this has diminished, then what is this one? Shankara. The more you understand, the more you make the wiser choice. The more you learn to let go instinctively. The more you don't hold on instinctively. The more you will lead your life through Dhamma way. So, can you now see that if the ignorance is not there, you won't have the problem that leads to dukkha. You won't have that problem. Actually, Paṭiccasamuppāda is to explain dukkha. The intent of this is to explain why is it we, living beings, experience dukkha, how it happens. Let me explain, the Buddha says, how individual will experience dukkha. You experience dukkha because, and then it leads all the way back to not knowing the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. That's what he has always been saying. The more you understand the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, the more the dukkha will diminish and you will experience nibbana. The more. And this essentially is him unpacking things to help us understand how in the way we make choices, how the mind instinctively works, how the two of them come together and we experience dukkha law. You understand that? Now does this thing not seem so daunting? So a lot of us get caught up here because there seems to be repetition. Because we assume that it is a thought process. But that wasn't his intent. His intent was to explain why the individual, because of ignorance, will experience dukkha. How the individual will experience dukkha. And you will experience dukkha because of, see, craving is here. Craving is almost an built-in instinct for human because of these things. These are experiences of the mind. They operate by themselves. This is where you make choices. Contact is not a choice. Huh? Feeling is instinctive. But here your choices start. This is where your choices begin. But if you don't have, perception is missing here. But it's okay. It's there.
Oh, okay. No wonder. Yeah.
Exactly. You see? So the point, correct. When you start to see this, as a thought process, for sure you get all caught up in knots, especially if you're a Dhamma scholar, because you know all these words, ma. But the moment you try to unpack that and say, look, it's all about trying to understand dukkha and how in developing wisdom, in developing an understanding of Dhamma, you will start to neutralize the mind's instincts which lead to dukkha. You look at the mind, look at how your mind works. The moment you start to see your practice, understand the link between the noble truths and dukkha, the moment you start to see that intensely, the moment you start to practice and you're very mindful of the mind, you start to make, then your ignorance starts to fade, your choices will start to be correct. It's all there already. And so the moment your choices is correct, right, then there won't be, you will still have these processes, but it's not in the way of an ignorant mind. The processing of the mind, that's why I tell you it is not a linear mental state. It merely explains how the function of the mind in its own merry way will lead to this kind of choices if you start off by not having wisdom. But the moment you have wisdom, then your choices will not be wrong. You won't make the kind of choices that will lead you to have this problem. You will still continue to have your normal daily life. But in your daily life, in the way that you look at things, in the way that you respond to things, in the way that you label things, you don't label it as mine, I. You don't label it this way. So this thing continues to function, but this one doesn't give you problems. This is where it starts to change already. Your feeling, you will see it. You will only see it detachedly. And the craving energy, yes, it bubbles, but you don't let it affect you. You will see it and you let it go. Clinging is very minimal. then you won't get dukkha lah. Okay, in the Mahanidana Sutta, now to kind of prove that what I was trying to explain is that Buddha merely wants to show Paṭiccasamuppāda, the conditionality and how it works. It's not meant to be so hard because I'm explaining the way the mind works. It's not like that. I'll show you. If in the Mahanidana Sutta, if you look at page 225, 224, 225, number 9. You look at what he said. And so Ananda, feeling conditions craving, we know that, right? Craving conditions seeking, okay, that's clinging. And then he goes on, look, seeking conditions acquisition conditions decision making conditions lustful desire conditions attachment, and so on and so forth. There's a whole list of new conditionality. Isn't it? All the way up to, because of the guarding of possessions that arise, the taking up of stick and sword, quarrel, disputes, argument, and so on and so forth. So now he used conditionality as a principle to explain how it functions in other areas. So the intent, I repeat, of conditionality as a principle, it is meant to be a principle to understand anatta, anicca, and dukkha. It is not meant to be a pure explanation of how the mind works in a linear way. It's not that.
It's not in time sequence.
It is not in absolute time sequence. Okay? Easier to appreciate conditionality. And you need to appreciate conditionality because it's a way of understanding anatta. Look, it all drives itself. It drives itself. And the only way you can crack it is to get this one right. To understand intuitively, instinctively, the relationship between craving and your stress, your dissatisfaction. Understand that intuitively. So at any one time when you do remember, meaning your avijja soften. At any one time when it soften, and it can soften any time. This is something which I want to stress. It's not softening only for the Aryas. You are a student of Dhamma. As a student of Dhamma, it will also soften for you. Anytime it softens for you is when your sense of dukkha will soften. That's all. That's what it means. What does it mean when it softens for you? When you're more mindful, when you're more alert, when you are fully mindful that when you cling, it's going to be dukkha. So you try to, sudah lah. You keep trying to tell yourself, it's okay lah, it's okay. Even doing things like this, by telling yourself, not mine, not I, not self, even by doing that, knowing that this is part of the practice, is softening this. Even when you are saying, not mine, not I, not self. I don't want to get angry with you. Getting angry is just mind-made. The more I construct things, the more I get angry. I'll just stop here. Doing that, being mindful that this is part of Dhamma, is taming, reducing avijja. Because it's with panya that you're softening it. You understand that? So at every point you start to be successful in softening this avijja, this ignorance, your choices, shankara, your volitional formation, your choices, your thoughts, it will gear towards letting go, letting be. Straight away, it will be softening of dukkha. Because your clinging is softened, craving is softened. Okay?